At the family barbecue, I tried to sound upbeat. "I can't wait for our vacation," I said lightly. My dad was the first to react, letting out that hollow laugh he saves for cruelty. "It's only for family without you." The patio erupted. Tara snorted into her drink. My mom grinned like it was a punchline she helped write. I didn't snap. I just nodded, rose from the chair, and left the unopened bottle of wine sitting on the picnic table like an abandoned peace offering. 5 days later, Mom reached for $5,000 she was certain she still had access to. One quick tap, and the account had a brand new name, and their group chat had a brand new emergency. Stay with me. This story doesn't end where they thought it would. Because long before that barbecue, before the laughter and the $5,000 attempt, there were years of tiny wounds I kept brushing aside because they were family. I teach 4th grade, which means most of my days taste like cafeteria pizza and smell faintly of glue sticks and dry erase markers that never wash out of your clothes. My nights are quiet, grading papers, prepping lesson plans, sipping lukewarm coffee. My weekends, though, those were always theirs. I drive nearly an hour to reboot a frozen laptop, cover a plumber bill they couldn't swing, or grab groceries when their card declined and they didn't want the cashier to know. They'd thank me, post smiling family photos, and somehow forget to tag me every single time. And the worst part? I loved it for a while. Being needed made me feel rooted, important, like I had a role. But slowly that role twisted. Being needed slid into being used, and I didn't see it until Emily did. Emily with her calm voice and organized brain, the kind of person who color codes vacation itineraries. Last spring she asked, "You know they only reach out when something needs fixing, right?" I laughed it off, brushing her off with some line about how families operate. I told her guilt was just our way of showing affection. She didn't laugh. Then came the Colorado trip. A cheap 3-day cabin break from lesson planning and the constant phone calls that began with, "Zoe, can you just..." I didn't post a single picture, but my cousin did. One photo of me and Emily in the snow was all it took. 2 days later, the texts started. Tara first, "Must be nice to forget your family." Then Matt, "You've changed." And then the message from my mother, sugary sweet and sharp enough to cut skin. "We've always been there for you, but when you have time off, you disappear like we don't exist." Somehow, they twisted a quiet weekend into a betrayal. By Friday, I was the villain of their group chat, the selfish daughter who abandoned them. Emily told me to skip the barbecue, said it smelled like a setup. But when Mom called with that cheerful tone, promising it would be just family, I fell for it. I always do. So that Sunday, I brought a decent bottle of red wine. Nothing extravagant, but nicer than the box stuff they usually poured. I even rehearsed how to sound casual, how to smooth things over without admitting fault. I convinced myself maybe things could go back to the way they were, but I didn't realize that the way things were was already ruined. I should have recognized it the second I stepped into their backyard. Something in the air felt thick, charged, like everyone was waiting on a cue. Dad stood at the grill, pretending he was hosting some warm, wholesome gathering. Matt leaned on the cooler, working on another beer. Tara stared at her phone, bored enough to yawn. Mom set out plates, humming like she was auditioning for the role of pleasant mother in a commercial. When I walked in, no one looked surprised, but no one bothered to greet me either. "Hey," I said, forcing brightness. "Looks great out here." Dad didn't glance up. "Yeah, we started early." Translation, "You're late." I sat down anyway, trying to pretend the silence wasn't hostile. Mom slid a plate in front of me. "So," she said casually, "how's Emily?" "She's good," I answered, hoping that was enough. It wasn't. Mom's thin smile said everything. No follow-up question, just a silence heavy enough to swallow the conversation whole. I tried turning to Matt, asking about his new job. He muttered something. Tara snorted. Their laughter wasn't loud, but it was pointed. I forced a smile, pretending I didn't feel the sting. And then it happened. The sentence that would rip the whole afternoon open. "I can't wait for our vacation." It was harmless, small talk. But the second the words left my mouth, Dad paused. Half a beat. Then he let out that deep fake laugh, the one he uses when he's prepping to strike.
It's only for family without you." And the patio erupted like he'd delivered the joke of the year. Matt slapped his knee, Tara wheezed, Mom lifted her wine glass in a mock toast, smiling wide. For a moment, I froze. My ears rang. Everything else blurred into the clinking of ice cubes in plastic cups. I waited for someone, anyone, to say it was just a joke, for Dad to wink, for Mom to hush him, but nothing came. Because this wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. They wanted me small. They wanted me ashamed. They wanted to see whether I would break. I didn't. I scanned the table, my so-called family, each of them laughing at my expense like it was a sport. Heat crawled up my neck, followed by something colder and far more final: understanding. This wasn't the first time they'd humiliated me, but it was the first time I stopped excusing it. They didn't want me included, they wanted me available, and that's not the same thing. So I did the only thing they weren't expecting. I went quiet. I nodded. "Got it," I said calmly. Then I stood, left the unopened bottle of wine sitting on the picnic table like an abandoned peace offering. I sat in my car for a long moment, not angry, clear, crystal clear. I'd spent years covering their bills, solving their emergencies, cleaning up their messes, and with one sentence, they clarified everything. I was on the outside. When I got home, the messages poured in. "You know Dad was joking, right? Don't be dramatic. You always take things too far." I ignored them. Instead, I opened my banking app. The joint account glared at me, the one I had left open for family emergencies. I considered shutting it down right then, but something in me wanted to see how far they'd push now that I wasn't reacting. I didn't have to wait long. 5 days later, withdrawal attempt, $5,000. The moment I saw it, something inside me clicked into place. Clean, quiet, final. I called the bank. "Block the card," I said, my voice steady. The rep asked if I wanted to file fraud, and I almost laughed. "No," I said. "It's family." When the confirmation email came, I opened the app again. The account name glowed at the top, Family Fund. I hit edit, backspaced, then typed 3 words: "Pay without me." I stared at it, the words that summed up years of being taken for granted. Then I tapped save. Within 10 minutes, my phone started buzzing nonstop. "Mom, did you touch the account?" "Dad, fix this." "Tara, LOL, what is wrong with you?" "Matt, seriously?" I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshotted the failed withdrawal and the new account name, dropped it into the group chat, and put my phone face down. Then I went for a walk, letting the thick summer air press against my skin while my mind stayed startlingly calm. For once, I wasn't rehearsing apologies or explanations. I was done. When I got back, the chat had exploded with accusations and guilt trips. Mom insisted the money was for the holidays. Dad claimed I was ungrateful. Tara mocked me. Matt told me to grow up. I read every message, then archived the entire thread. A file for a future I hoped I'd never need. Emily found me on the couch, curling under a blanket with my phone dark in my hand. She didn't ask. She just said softly, "You finally did it, didn't you?" I nodded. Yeah, I stopped paying for people who never counted me as part of the cost. Thunder rolled somewhere outside, low and steady. Inside, my phone vibrated again. More messages I had no interest in reading. They wanted noise. I gave them quiet.
That's the thing about revenge. It's not always fire and explosions. Sometimes it's a single silent decision, a quiet click, and the sound of all debts finally disappearing. By the next morning, the panic had bloomed. 16 missed calls, dozens of messages ricocheting between outrage and pleading. Mom showing up at my school midday, clutching her purse like she was performing Heartbreak. "You blocked the card?" she asked, voice trembling in all the places she thought would sway me. "Yes." "We needed it for the holidays," she whispered. "You tried to take $5,000 without asking." "It was for the family," she insisted. I smiled softly. "You told me I wasn't part of the family, remember?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. She wasn't expecting that. "Zoe," she said finally, "you're overreacting. You're being cruel." That word cruel landed harder than the laughter ever did. For years, they'd taken and called it love. Now me saying no was cruelty. I have to get back to class, I said. You should go. Her voice cracked on my name, but I walked away before I could start to care again. That night, I came home to Emily setting out takeout containers on the counter. You okay? She asked. I shrugged. They're unraveling. She smiled faintly. Good. But it didn't stop there. 2 days later, I came home to my apartment door slightly ajar. My first thought was that I'd forgotten to lock it. My second thought, when I heard voices inside, was worse. Mom and Dad were standing in my living room. Tara sprawled on the couch, shoes off, scrolling her phone, a half-eaten bag of chips on the coffee table. What are you doing here? I asked. Mom turned with that same practiced calm. You weren't answering. Because you tried to steal from me? I said. Dad stepped forward, voice heavy with mock authority. Watch your tone. We're still your parents. Then act like it. He scoffed. You've changed ever since you started dating her. Emily froze at the doorway, holding the takeout bag like a shield. You broke into his apartment, she said evenly. That's not okay. This is family business, Mom snapped. I felt the last thread of patience snap. No, I said. This is trespassing. They didn't move. Tara laughed softly without looking up. You're such a drama queen. I walked to the door, opened it wide. Get out, Zoe. Now. Mom's eyes narrowed, cold, replacing the sweetness. You're going to regret this. I already did, I said, and shut the door behind them. The silence after they left felt sacred. Emily sat on the couch, shoulders tense. They're not going to stop, she said. I know. That night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my mother's sister, Denise, the family's black sheep. When she answered, she didn't sound surprised. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. She invited me over that same evening. Her small house smelled like cedar and old books. Before I could speak, she handed me a folder thick with papers. Your mother's been manipulating people for years. You're just the latest. Inside were records, payments, old transfers, even hand-signed notes from the time she'd borrowed money from Denise and never repaid a cent. $10,000 for a roof repair in 2012, another $5,000 for a medical emergency that turned out to be a Caribbean cruise. I felt sick. She said you were unstable, I murmured. Denise laughed. Of course she did. It's easier to erase the truth when everyone thinks you're crazy. We spent hours comparing stories. The patterns matched perfectly. Borrow, lie, guilt, repeat. I can help you, she said, pouring wine into 2 mismatched glasses. But if we do this, you have to be ready for them to hate you. I smiled for the first time all week. They already hate me. The next few days were a quiet storm. Denise's friend, someone who worked in financial compliance, helped me sever every tie I had with my parents. Accounts, emergency contacts, insurance. I closed the last joint account, then sent one message to the family chat, a screenshot of the zero balance under the name Pay Without Me. No caption, just silence. Matt responded first. What the hell is this? Tara followed, you're losing it. Mom called 6 times in an hour. I didn't answer. The next morning, I woke to find my phone vibrating nonstop. Denise had posted something old photos of my parents in casinos, sipping cocktails, timestamps overlapping the months they'd claimed to be broke. She didn't tag them. She didn't have to. Within minutes, cousins were texting me asking if it was true. My father's sister messaged, "You've humiliated your mother." I just stared at the screen, feeling none of the guilt they were trying to hand me. That evening, my mother appeared again, this time on my doorstep, with her brother, Brian. He stood behind her like muscle, arms crossed, sunglasses on, though it was almost dark. She looked tired, strategically tired. We came to talk, she said. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You shouldn't be here. Brian jumped in. You embarrassed the family. That post was out of line. I almost laughed. Out of line is trying to drain my account.
She made a mistake, he snapped. She made a choice, I corrected. Mom lifted her hands in mock surrender. We just want peace. We canceled the trip. We thought maybe we could start over.
The same game. Pretend it never happened. Reset the board. I'm not going anywhere with you. I said if you show up again uninvited, I'll file a report. Brian scoffed. You'd threaten your own mother? I met his stare. No, I'm protecting my life. Mom's expression shifted. Shock, then pity, then contempt. You've changed, she said, as if it were the worst thing imaginable. I have, I said quietly, and I'm not sorry. They walked away without another word. The porch light buzzed above me. Inside, Emily waited by the window, eyes searching my face. It's not over, I told her. They'll come back. I was right. 2 days later, an email arrived from the school district. Notice of concern. Immediate acknowledgement required. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint claiming I was emotionally unstable and creating a hostile classroom environment. I read it twice, then looked up at Emily. They found a new way to attack. She took my hand. Then we find a new way to end it. And this time, I knew exactly how. I didn't waste a second. I called Denise, forwarded the complaint, and waited while she read. Anonymous. Huh, she said. Give me a day. By the next afternoon, she called back. Got her, she said simply. Your sister's college IP. No VPN. Amateur hour. Relief didn't come all at once. It came in waves. I brought everything, emails, messages, screenshots, to a lawyer Denise recommended. Her name was Clara. Calm and sharp-eyed. The kind of woman who didn't blink at family drama dressed as fraud. She flipped through the pages and said, We'll start with a no-contact order. Temporary at first, then permanent. It was like exhaling after years of holding my breath. Within a week, the school board cleared my name. HR apologized quietly. My principal told me to take a few days off. Paid, of course. I said thank you, but what I meant was, finally. Mom tried to call once more. I didn't answer. Then came a final message. You'll regret cutting us out. Family is forever. I deleted it. That night, Emily and I packed boxes. We found a new place. 2-bedroom, sunlight that actually reached the floor, a kitchen window overlooking a park. When the keys turned in the new lock, I felt something loosen in my chest that had been tight for years. Denise came by with pizza and cheap wine. As we ate on the floor, she said, You know, they'll probably keep talking. They always need someone to blame. I smiled. Let them. I'm not in the story anymore. Later, when the last box was unpacked, I opened my banking app one last time. The account still read, pay without me. I didn't change it back. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was a reminder that silence can be louder than shouting, that walking away can echo more than any argument. For the first time in my life, I slept through the night. No calls, no buzzing phone, no guilt. Just peace paid in full. 2 months later, I stopped checking their group chat altogether. Actually, I didn't just mute it this time. I deleted it. No final message, no goodbye. Just gone. The quiet was strange at first. No more fake emergencies, no more guilt disguised as love. The kind of silence that once felt heavy now felt like freedom. On a Friday night, Emily and I sat on the balcony of our new apartment, a pizza box between us, cheap wine in our hands. The city lights flickered below, warm and distant. You ever think they'll apologize? She asked. I shook my head. They'd have to believe they did something wrong. She smiled. Then I guess you already won. I looked down at my phone. No missed calls, no unread messages, just the words I'd left behind in that frozen account. Pay without me. For once, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. They said I wasn't family. Maybe they were right, because family shouldn't make you beg to belong. So tell me, if the people who call you family keep taking until there's nothing left, would you finally make them pay without?